nothing short of a miracle that no one was injured or killed, including innocent civilians or our police officers.
More arrests and shocking security video connected to a downtown gun battle.
More than 100 shots fired outside a Queen West recording studio. Good afternoon. The gunfire erupted back in November.
Police calling it an audacious and reckless exchange of bullets. And today we're learning of more arrests and more suspects in this investigation. CTV's Janice Goulding joins us live from Toronto Police Headquarters this afternoon with the latest. Janice.
Hi, yes, Michelle, police have just unveiled some very shocking surveillance video and what you did identify as what they called an audacious and reckless exchange of gunfire in the downtown core, and announcing additional arrests in this case.
I want these faces to get out there. We need to find these people. We need to get them off the street.
Inspector Paul Krajcik shows the media shocking video from a party that preceded a gunfight outside a Queen West recording studio. A group of men who were gathered at a birthday celebration brazenly handling weapons. Quote, guns treated like toys and lives treated as afterthoughts. Police allege at 11:20 p.m. Monday, November the 11th, plainclothes officers were conducting an investigation outside the recording studio when three armed people exited a stolen vehicle, firing on the back of the building. As you can see from the video, people inside the recording studio returned fire, and the original three shooters took cover behind an unmarked police vehicle. The car, which was occupied by two police officers, was struck by bullets several times. As the original suspects tried to flee the scene, their stolen car was hit and disabled by another unmarked police vehicle, and three suspects fled on foot. Initially, 23 people were arrested, 8 people were charged, and 16 firearms seized. Today, police announced they've made 14 additional arrests, and 105 charges have been laid in Project Poppy.
There's a couple things that strike me when I look at that video. First of all, the casualness of what they're here with guns in their laps like their cell phones. They're dancing around, celebrating basically with these guns, jumping around. They don't have a care in the world. It's like they don't expect that they're going to get caught with this. So whatever we've done in society that's allowed these people to have the confidence to do this thing, I'm obviously not going to figure that out tonight or today, but the reality is something has allowed them to be this comfortable, posted on social media.
9 suspects remain outstanding, however. In this image, you see Caleb Ojulati-Stewart, Noah Belnavis-Esu, Dylan Williams, and Olad Olad. In this next image, you see Donnery Walker, Jamarlee Smith, Jadane Hamblett, and Mohammed Carey. The image of a 17-year-old has not been released because his identity is protected under the Youth Criminal Justice Act. Police reiterate that it is a miracle that no one was injured in this incident, adding that their message to anyone who engages in gun violence is very clear, to quote, "We will not stop coming after you." Reporting live, Janice Goulding. Now back to Nathan.
Thank you, Janice. York Regional Police continue to hunt for a suspect captured on camera shooting a woman outside of her own Markham home. Fortunately, she wasn't seriously injured. Investigators sharing the evidence in the hopes of catching the gunman. CTV's Scott Lightfoot reports.
He was dressed in a reflective safety vest, hard hat, and medical mask, and around 5:30 Tuesday night, he opened fire on a woman walking toward her home in Markham. The entire incident captured on home security cameras.
We see a male party that's interacting with our victim, who is pacing back and forth in front of the house.
The interaction begins in front of the house on Lee Avenue. The man arrives in a dark-colored Audi A4. Investigators believe the man's disguise may have also been used to help lure the victim from her home.
In this particular circumstance, there is some road work that's happening out in front of our victim's house, and you can see pylons in the video as well. We believe that the suspect used this opportunity to take advantage of the fact that the victim would be unsuspecting of why he was there, and actually went out to interact with him.
The pair interact briefly in front of the house. The victim is blurred in this video from York Regional Police. The two can be seen talking before the woman walks up the driveway toward her house.
As the woman was walking back into her residence, he pulls a firearm out and he actually fires multiple shots at her.
The video shows the shooter appearing to struggle, seemingly unable to fire at first, but you can see from the muzzle flash that he does manage to get a couple of shots off, one of which struck the woman.
It was only minor injuries, and she is already out of the hospital.
The shooter left the scene in the same car he arrived in. Police say they believe the shooting was targeted and that the victim was the intended target. However, investigators say there's no indication that the victim and the suspect knew each other.
Scott Lightfoot, CTV News.
To Queen's Park this noon hour, where speculation is growing, an early election call is coming.
An announcement expected potentially as soon as next week. Premier Doug Ford saying he needs a clear mandate in the face of American tariffs. CTV's Mike Walker joins us live with the details. Mike.
Well, that's been the message, Nathan, for weeks now from Premier Doug Ford, who has been hinting at calling an early election. Now, adding to that speculation, we are learning that the Ontario PC party is inviting MPPs and candidates to a meeting this weekend to prepare for a snap election.
Stay tuned.
It's the strongest indication yet from Premier Doug Ford that an election is imminent. Now the PCs are set to strategize for a snap election. A memo has been sent to MPPs, candidates, and campaign managers, inviting them to a super caucus meeting on Saturday. For weeks, the Premier has signaled he will need a mandate to spend billions of dollars in order to combat looming tariffs from the Trump administration.
But we need a mandate from the people. We need a mandate to protect and possibly spend billions of dollars to protect people's jobs, to protect businesses, and to protect communities. And there's only one group of people, one group that is going to give you the mandate, and that's the people, and that's what's great about democracy. They either vote a government in or they vote them out.
According to the memo, Saturday's meeting will include door-knocking training, candidate headshots, as well as fundraising insights. An election could be called as early as Wednesday. Experts suggest Ford wants to get ahead of an impending federal election while continuing to lead the polls.
So the only reason you're spending $160 million in the middle of this crisis with Trump is so that you can, that's how much an election costs, $160 million, is so that you can lock in this election for you.
The opposition has argued an election isn't necessary now.
Mr. Ford does not need a mandate. He has a mandate. He is the premier of a province. He has a majority government. He can pass any legislation he basically wants to.
Suggesting partisanship should be set aside to work together on the impending tariffs. Now, the law in Ontario requires that elections be called on a Wednesday, and that would be followed by a 28-day campaign period. So if the Premier calls an election next week, that means voters will be heading to the polls on February 27th. Reporting live, I'm Mike Walker. Nathan, back to you.
All right. Thank you, Mike. The province is taking a new step as part of its plan to close 10 supervised drug consumption sites. Citing safety concerns and a deadly 2023 shooting, the Ford government has said it's determined to close sites located within 200 meters of a school or daycare. It's passed a law that would see those sites closed by the end of March, with some converted into treatment hubs. But as that effort faces charter challenges in the courts, now the province is hiring a private investigations firm, saying doing so will help gather additional evidence about the impact of these sites. Advocates have questioned why the increased scrutiny is happening now and not before the closure decisions were announced.
Also today, the province officially approved the next phase in the refurbishment of the Pickering nuclear generating station. The Ford government says it's authorized Ontario Power Generation to sign a $2.1 billion project with Canada-U.S. for early engineering and procurement for the facility. Officials say once refurbished, the Pickering site would produce more than 2,000 megawatts of electricity. That's expected to happen by the mid-2030s.
Still to come this noon hour, raising the alarm about delays on the TTC. A new report from a riders advocacy group, the wait times, gaps in service, and calls for change.
More news in a moment, but first, let's take a live look at the city this afternoon. And I can't really tell, but it's a cloudy day, and there are flurries in the mix anticipated. But did you feel it? It's not as cold as it has been this week. It is still very much cold, but the temperature rising a little bit. Lindsay Morrison is here with a look at the current conditions. An improvement.
Absolutely, Michelle. We are climbing out of the deep freeze. In fact, already at this hour here in the city of Toronto, the temperature is -5 and it feels like only -11. What a difference compared to the last couple of days. Now, we do have gusty winds coming out of the southwest. That's been driving the flurry activity that you saw there, especially around Toronto, Scarborough, and then over toward the Port Hope area. It's those communities still seeing some active weather right now. There could be reduced visibility on the roads if you're venturing out this afternoon, and maybe some snow-covered roads too. Snow squall warning remains in place right along that north shore of Lake Ontario, so just a heads up on that. We've got snow squall watches and winter weather travel advisories also in place. Afternoon high today, -5, and our temperature is gradually improving as we inch into the weekend. We'll talk all about it coming up in your forecast. For now, Nathan, I'll send it over to you.
Thank you, Lindsay. It's been a frustrating week for commuters with the 5-hour Line 1 closure yesterday and ongoing delays from restricted speed zones today.
Now, a new report is suggesting the TTC is also falling short when it comes to service on its surface routes. Advocacy group TTC Riders took a look at the TTC's on-time performance for buses and streetcars, specifically from September through to mid-November. And it found riders on many routes were waiting much longer than expected due to bunching. That's when delays from traffic or long loading times result in several transit vehicles arriving at the same time, while riders are left dealing with lengthy gaps in service. Here to help us break down the findings in the TTC Riders report is the group's executive director, Sheila Pizy-Allen. Sheila, great to have you with us. No doubt we've all seen bunching out there on the roads. Your new report points out the TTC's take on their performance doesn't jive with what riders are actually experiencing out there. Explain what you found.
Exactly. And, I want to just say off the top that we're so encouraged that this year's budget includes a pilot to reduce bunching. And that's really encouraging. And so it's time for an honest conversation about how bad bunching really is out there. What we found is that the TTC's KPIs, the key performance indicators it reports on, only measure service as on time when it leaves the terminal. So if I'm waiting in the middle of a route and my bus is 20 minutes late, according to the TTC stats, that bus was on time. So, it's time to change how those stats are reported so that we can see if the bunching pilot works, because there's some great investments in this budget to, increase service. If we fix bunching and make transit more reliable, we'll get even more out of that investment.
Why do you think there is this discrepancy in the reporting and the realities?
I think this has been a trend at the TTC. We saw it with the Scarborough RT derailment and reports not coming forward. There's been a lack of transparency and accountability, but the fact that there's been a pilot announced to deal with bunching means that TTC is acknowledging it is a problem, and we're encouraged by that. And so we've shared this report to give suggestions for how to change how it reports on data, because transit riders should be able to trust that when they go out and expect to see their bus, that it does show up when it's supposed to. But right now, we have no way of verifying whether that's true. We did a Freedom of Information request to get access to the real on-time performance data. We shouldn't have to do that. That should be living on the website for everyone to see so that we can all see how the TTC is doing.
And certainly once you have an accurate take of what's going on, it really helps to help you realize how to solve the problem. One of the things that TTC Riders, your group, and the TTC have in common is that you both want to see service levels improve. What do you think we could do to get there, to get the numbers exactly where everyone's happy?
Yeah, and a big thing to make transit more reliable is to give buses and streetcars their own lanes. That's huge, because the reason buses start to bunch up and then there's long wait times in between groups of buses is traffic. That's the number one way to make transit more reliable. But of course, the flip side is also you can't fix what you don't measure. So even on some of the routes where transit does have priority, it's not as reliable as it could be. So more priority, more frequent service, and making sure that it's running smoothly.
Sheila Pizy-Allen is the Executive Director of TTC Riders. Great to have you with us today. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
And in reaction to their report, TTC spokesperson Stuart Green responded, saying in part, quote, "We aren't able to corroborate the noted experience specifically. However, we understand there are periods and days where service reliability is challenged across the network. TTC continues to invest in improving surface route service reliability by adjusting schedules to observe traffic conditions." He added the TTC, and Sheila noted this earlier, plans to pilot a bunching and gapping reduction program.
We have new details about how Toronto City Hall is spending your money.
The mayor promising funding to improve city libraries. It's all included in this year's budget plan. CTV's Beth McDonnell joins us live with those details. Beth.
Michelle, Mayor Olivia Chow stopped by here at the Guildwood Library in Scarborough to share more details about the extended hours coming to a library near you. Starting in July, some branches across Toronto will open on Sundays from 12 to 5. The branch here in Guildwood will open Sundays starting in September, along with dozens of other locations in the city. This year, 66 other branches will also have longer hours, and if everything goes according to plan, all 100 branches across the system will be open 7 days a week in 2026. The cost to expand in 2025 is $1.9 million. That was approved by the Library Board and now goes to Council. The cost to expand in 2026 is just over $5 million.
We know that no matter what's the income, what's the age, coming to a library you can really enjoy, whether it's movies, audiobooks, activities, mom and tot drop-ins, seniors book clubs, you name it. We know it's really popular because when we did this last year for a small number of libraries as a bit of a little pilot, the library visits increased by 61%.
The mayor says Toronto's libraries make up the busiest public system in North America with 12 million visits a year. Reporting live, I'm Beth McDonnell. Nathan, back to you.
Thank you, Beth. A report from the Ontario Autism Coalition finds that 50% of parents of kids with autism frequently worry about their child's safety at school. The report also found that over a third of families say their child did not feel safe or supported at school. The most reported safety concerns were bullying, wandering away, and violence. The majority of families also say some or none of their child's individual education plan accommodations were followed consistently, and half feel their children are not receiving a meaningful education.
Educators and school staff are left to do the best they can just to keep students with disabilities safe due to chronic staffing shortages and a lack of resources. Often, the only tool they have left in their toolbox is exclusions.
6% of families surveyed said their children were not attending school at all. Over 1/3 said their children were being partially excluded. The survey involved 429 families and 60 school boards. It was conducted 1 week before the beginning of the school year.
Donald Trump spoke remotely today to the World Economic Forum in his first major speech to global business and political leaders, and Canada was mentioned.
One thing we're going to be demanding is we're going to be demanding respect from other nations. Canada, we have a tremendous deficit with Canada. We're not going to have that anymore. We can't do it. I don't know if it's good for them. As you probably know, I say you can always become a state. And if you're a state, we won't have a deficit, we won't have to tariff you, et cetera, et cetera. But Canada has been very tough to deal with over the years, and it's not fair that we should have a $200 billion or $250 billion deficit. We don't need them to make our cars, and they make a lot of them. We don't need their lumber because we have our own forests, et cetera, et cetera. We don't need their oil and gas. We have more than anybody.
Trump has threatened to impose 25% tariffs on Canadian goods that could take effect February 1st. The federal government and nearly all of the premiers have been vowing retaliatory measures if that happens. The U.S. tariffs will be on the agenda this afternoon when the federal Liberal caucus meets.
And this week, we've been taking a closer look at the businesses and industries which could be affected by U.S. tariffs.
In part 4 of our series, CTV's Sean Leathong examines how wide-ranging the impact would be.
unloading refined zinc by the ton. This factory in Brampton is creating something used by millions in everyday life.
So we're a manufacturer of high-quality French processed zinc oxide.
Mohit Sharma is the president and CEO of Zochem, a company that turns this refined metal into fine powder, used most everywhere.
It goes into tires, rubber, agriculture, which is animal feed and fertilizer. It's into pharmaceutical products such as your multivitamins, your sunscreen, your baby's diaper rash cream.
Zochem is the largest producer of zinc oxide in North America, sending more than $100 million worth to the U.S. each year.
We're vital to the United States of America because they don't have enough production of their own.
We first met Sharma in part 1 of this series, saying that 25% tariffs on his product
would be a solid punch in the face, for sure.
The company is American, headquartered in Tennessee, making Zochem a prime example of how intertwined the Canadian and U.S. economies really are. The zinc used here is mined way up in northwest Alaska. From there, the product is brought into Canada to be refined in Trail, BC. The refined zinc is sent via rail to Zochem in Brampton and made into zinc oxide, then shipped to customers primarily in the U.S.
We have every tire company that you can think of that you've seen. We work with a lot of the large pharmaceutical companies known globally, as well as some of the food additive companies.
The 25% tariff would be baked into many products on store shelves. Many of the exporters to the United States that we've spoken to for this series say the pain from tariffs will be mutual.
And so while we sit here in a fight that nobody wanted between partners, our adversary eats our lunch.
Arguing that this moment is an opportunity for Canada.
And go beyond this tariff issue and probably address continental security issue, because at the end, this is what is the issue.
And ensure unfair traders, like we have seen with certain jurisdictions overseas, remain out of the markets.
These super sacks all contain about a metric ton.
The question remains if the bad times will come.
There is a bit of a wait and see. 25% tariffs on all products going from Canada to the United States seems like a big lift for even our fellow Americans.
Shantley Thong, CTV News.
Liberals wanting to replace Justin Trudeau as party leader and prime minister have just a few more hours to officially sign up. As of this morning, there are 4 declared candidates who have filed their applications for approval: Mark Carney, Chrystia Freeland, Chandra Arya, and Karina Gould. A number of others have declared their intention to run. Anyone wanting to be a candidate must file their paperwork and deposits by 5 o'clock this afternoon. They have 4 days left to sign up members who can vote in the race. The party elects its new leader March 9th. In Ottawa today, Gould met with reporters touching on one area where her party needs improvement.
I think we have to be honest about the fact that Canadians have lost trust in our party. And part of it is because I don't think we responded to the issues that they were telling us mattered to them. I think when it came to the end of the pandemic and the spike in inflation, Canadians were saying things are really hard. And we didn't say, you're right. We didn't say, yeah, things are really hard right now, and here's how we're going to fix it.
Gould says it took the Liberals too long to understand Canadians are struggling to make ends meet. The government House leader has received endorsements from MPs Lisa Hefner and Pam Damoff.
In California, a new brush fire has erupted as firefighters continue to battle other blazes. The new fire erupted late yesterday in the Sepulveda Pass along a highway. It's 16 hectares and 0% contained so far. Some nearby residents were evacuated overnight. Powerful winds and dry conditions were expected to pose a challenge to firefighters battling the blazes, including one that grew over the past day. It forced the evacuation of tens of thousands of homes north of Los Angeles. And for more on the fires, we're joined by CTV's Scott Hurst. And Scott, you've been covering this and we know it's bad. Plus you've got the winds. What's the situation now?
Nathan, this latest fire to erupt yesterday morning, already exploding in size, is the Hughes fire, and it has already burned through some 40 square kilometers, putting tens of thousands of people under evacuation alert and evacuation order. Let me set the scene and kind of show you where this is, particularly in comparison to the other major fires that we've been talking about for several weeks now. This is in northern Los Angeles County along the border with Ventura County, north of where the other major fires are still burning, might I add, and a straight shot east of Santa Barbara. It is in an area known as Castaic Lake, a popular recreation area for boating, hiking, and fishing, often less than about an hour from downtown LA. Much more rural, but there are still homes and schools and businesses being threatened. But crews are making some progress. Some 4,000 firefighters are battling the Hughes fire with helicopters, air tankers, and as I mentioned, ground crews. The good news, they're making progress. If you remember to the first few days of the other big fires, the Eaton and Palisades fire, it seemed like little to no progress could be made on containment for some time because of the significantly high winds. Wind is still a concern, but not as bad as it was a few weeks ago. So even though this fire just erupted about 24 hours ago, maybe a bit more than that, they have been able to get to about 14% containment. So of course, promising, but a lot of work still ahead. They might need some luck, too, with the wind conditions, with the weather conditions, as wind, Nathan, is still a concern that it could continue to whip up this inferno.
Yeah, for sure. What about the evacuations? How are they going?
Yeah, you can imagine that this is quite an emotionally charged time in terms of evacuations. There are a lot of people under evacuation orders right now, and in the area where this new fire is burning, several schools that have been closed at least for today as they watch the progress that could be made. And also in the other areas where these major fires are still a concern, there are still a lot of people out of their homes, and those fires are still burning closer to the more densely populated areas of Los Angeles County. If I can just run through those fires, the Eaton fire is still about 95% contained, and the Palisades fire about 70% contained. So there has been a lot of work done on those fires, still threatening, still a concern. But of course, with the winds, things can change at a moment's notice. Now, there is a potential, Nathan, for some rain this weekend, which is, of course, good news for an area that hasn't seen any sizable rain in many months. But that also brings a whole new set of challenges. When this rain comes, it could cause the potential for mud and debris flows, particularly through the fire-impacted areas. So rain would be good. They're watching the winds, hoping that they can cooperate. But as I mentioned, rain could bring a whole new set of challenges for an area that is already been decimated and so much devastation because of these fires.
No question. CTV's Scott Hurst with the latest on the fires in LA. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Nathan.
All right, Lindsay.
Well, we've been talking a lot about the weather in the U.S., a different part of the country, the snow and the extreme cold across the south. And I thought this was kind of interesting. As of yesterday morning, New Orleans picking up more snow in the month of January than we had in the city of Toronto. Now, we did pick up a little bit last night and this morning in some areas. Over the next couple of days, more snow is expected to fall the closer you get to the shorelines of Lake Huron as well as Georgian Bay, those typical areas. But we have a chance of flurries most days into the weekend. We'll take you through the 7-day forecast on the other side of this break. You're watching CTV News at noon. We'll be right back.
Closed captioning is brought to you in part by Gateway Casinos. Check Your Check is on now, with over $1 million in cash and prizes to be won across Ontario. Details at gatewaycasinos.com.
So I know it's relative, but I went outside today and I felt comfortable. I thought, this is not bad. I can deal with this.
Yeah, if we got these temperatures, let's say in May, we'd be like, oh, we're dying. But given the fact that we were, what was it? What was the lowest we got this
minus
week?
18 degrees for a low, and for a daytime high, roughly minus 11. So, yeah.
So -5. Ooh, wow.
We will take it. It's an improvement. And if you like today, I think you're going to like the weekend and maybe the early part of next week, too. We are improving when it comes to these temperatures. It's still cold out, don't get me wrong, but it's not as cold and it's not dangerously cold anymore. But overnight tonight, it will be chilly once again. By Sunday, Monday, things are really going to change, perhaps for the better for most. Weather is brought to you by the Pressler Law Firm Injury Lawyers. You don't pay unless they win. Now, I do want to show you some footage because this has just been fascinating. The historic winter storm in the United States. That's not sand that you're seeing. That is snow on the beach at the Isle of Palms in South Carolina. Anybody who was trying to escape our Canadian winter and maybe went to the Carolinas or to the northern part of Florida, maybe a little disappointed this week, or perhaps fascinated as well by what they've been seeing. Accumulating snow in many areas, temperatures below freezing. Here at home, we've also had a little bit of snow, but it's probably not quite as interesting around here, is it? That snow has been falling for the most part around Toronto and then the East GTA in through Northumberland County, over toward Prince Edward County at times as well. And we've also got some lake effect snow once again the closer you get to Georgian Bay and Lake Huron, those areas that have been dealing with it for days now. That continues. Winter weather travel advisories and snow squall watches in place. Still under a warning from Pickering over in through Clarington as well. 10 to 20 centimeters of snow expected to accumulate in some areas by this afternoon, but it does appear as though things are tapering off, weakening. I would expect some improvements as this afternoon goes on, but perhaps another little burst of snow as we make our way into this evening. I'll pause it there around 6 p.m. just to show you what could be happening. And again, this is during the afternoon drive, so watch for reduced visibility, maybe some snow-covered roads in some areas, but we're not expecting a lot in the way of accumulation, especially around Toronto. Here's tomorrow. Looks like it's going to be a mostly cloudy day. I'm hopeful for some sunny breaks. That would be lovely. However, a few flurries could creep back in, and then over the weekend and really into next week, we've got a chance of flurries pretty well every day. The temperature, however, is going to continue to improve. We're at -5 degrees right now. That is our forecast daytime high. Still a wind chill. It's going to feel into the minus double digits still through this afternoon. Overnight tonight, -13, wind chill -20. Again, it's still cold, just not as cold. And then here's a little snapshot of tomorrow. It looks like mostly cloudy skies again in most areas. Temperature around -5 to -9 degrees, depending on where you're joining us from. Here is the 7-day forecast. Again, improvements. We're back around seasonal over the weekend. Hopefully some sun on Sunday. And then check out Monday of next week. Daytime high could be around -1. That's your look at the weather for now. Michelle, over to you.
Thanks, Lindsay. A traffic stop in Ottawa has police shaking their heads. OPP have charged a man caught watching YouTube behind the wheel.
Police say the man was an Uber driver with a passenger in the back. CTV's Katie Griffin has more on the dangers of distracted driving.
On the 417 near Rochester Tuesday night, Ontario Provincial Police nabbing an Uber driver allegedly watching more than the road.
The officer approached and observed the driver of the vehicle with a cell phone attached to the dashboard, currently playing a YouTube video.
The driver had a fare in the back seat. He told police he wasn't watching the video, just listening to it. That's still an offense under the Highway Traffic Act.
Any entertainment device or screen display that is available to the driver, so it can be mounted on the dashboard, even if you're not looking at it, if it's available to the driver, it is an offense under the Highway Traffic Act.
The Ottawa detachment of the OPP laid 198 distracted driving charges in 2024, up from 118 the year before.
We look at the stats in Ottawa between 2017 and 2021. 79 people were involved in fatal or major injury collisions related to distracted driving. So when we're thinking about text, when we're thinking about emails or whatever it is, changing your Spotify playlist, these things can all wait.
The Uber driver was hit with a $615 fine, 3 demerit points, and a 3-day license suspension upon conviction. From police, a simple message.
Leave the distraction alone, focus on the road, focus on your driving, and keep everyone safe.
Katie Griffin, CTV News.
In Hamilton, nearly a dozen youths are facing charges related to several vehicle thefts. According to police, one of those thefts caused a parent to miss the birth of their child. Officers say the parent left their Honda SUV running while they went into a daycare to pick up their child when the vehicle was stolen. The parent's cell phone and personal belongings were also inside the SUV. Because they didn't have a phone, the hospital was unable to contact them right away, and their partner gave birth without them.
Still to come, On CTV News this noon hour, we're counting down to the Academy Awards. The Oscar nominations were announced this morning. The films and stars in the running for the Ultimate Entertainment Trophy after the break.
After a delay caused by the California wildfires, the countdown is now on to Hollywood's biggest night.
The nominees for the 97th Annual Academy Awards were officially announced today.
Here are the 10 nominees for Best Motion Picture of the Year.
Here they are.
Here we go.
Anora, Alex Coco, Samantha Kwan, and Sean Baker, producers.
Also recognized in that category, Amelia Perez, which leads the list of nominations with 13, followed by The Brutalist and Wicked, which each scored 10 nods. Ahead of the ceremony, which takes place March 2nd, airs on CTV. Film critic Richard Krause has been keeping a close eye on the nominations. I feel like saying it's that time of year again, Richard. Great to have you with us. It's a big crop for Best Picture. What are your thoughts on all those in the running?
Well, there's nothing that doesn't belong there. Let's say that. Often the Academy will only do 8 or 9 nominations, even though they're allowed a field of 10 in this category, and they always end up leaving something off that shouldn't be there, or they insert one that doesn't really feel like it fits in. But all these movies I think belong here. It would have been nice to see The Last Showgirl slip in there somewhere, but between Anora, which was my absolute favorite movie of the year, and The Brutalist, which I think is probably on the high track toward getting Best Picture this year, and A Complete Unknown and Conclave, and Dune, which is a great nomination for Canadian Denis Villeneuve, who was one of the producers on that as well as director. It's a good field of pictures.
Let's talk about the Best Actress category. A lot of talented folk in that category. What do you make of the people nominated this year?
Well, we've got some really interesting performances here. Cynthia Erivo from Wicked, which is a movie that a lot of people have seen. Carla Sofia Gascon for Amelia Perez, and she became the first openly transgender actor to be nominated for an Academy Award as of this morning. You've got Mikey Madison for Anora, Demi Moore for The Substance, and Fernanda Torres, I'm Still Here. I'm looking at Demi Moore as a real candidate here to win Best Actress here. The movie The Substance is about Hollywood. It is about a lot of really hot button issues in Hollywood, about fame, the fleeting nature of that, aging, all those sorts of things. Demi Moore has been away for a while. This is a big comeback. The Academy loves that. And when she won the Golden Globe, she gave the speech of the night. And it was very specific to her life and the subject of the film, but in its universality, really, it's talking about aging, it's talking about resilience. She was talking about, never saying no. And I think that will really resonate with a lot of the voters for the Academy Awards. So Demi Moore is my pick.
Oh, that movie was something else. I'm having flashbacks. The first part was one thing. The second part was something else. When you look at, I noticed Cynthia Erivo, who was nominated for leading actress, but then her co-star nominated for Best Supporting Actress. So Wicked really doing well.
Yeah, Wicked picked up 10 nominations, which is really good. The most any movie has ever been nominated is 14, and that's Titanic, All About Eve, and La La Land. So 10 nominations, not too shabby for really, the big debut in headlining a huge film. Ariana Grande did really well. And what I liked about her performance in Wicked was that it was really light. This is a huge movie, multi-million dollars. It's a two-parter. It's a big musical. Every inch of the screen is filled with action and color and light. And still, she managed to give this performance that was light, kind of frothy, but it's very difficult to do in that sort of milieu. And I thought that she really pulled it off. So I don't know if she'll win. I think we might be looking at Zoe Saldana from Amelia Perez for Best Supporting Actress, but I was happy to see Ariana Grande up there.
My kids liked her when she was a child actress, so look at how far she's come. It's something else. Let's squeeze in Best Actor because a lot of talented performers there. What are your thoughts on the list?
Well, Best Actor, interesting to me that Daniel Craig for the movie Queer was not nominated here. A lot of people were touting that. But you've got Adrian Brody for The Brutalist, Ralph Fiennes for Conclave, Timothy Chalamet for A Complete Unknown, Coleman Domingo for Sing Sing, and the real surprise here, Sebastian Stan for The Apprentice, playing Donald Trump in a movie that Donald Trump tried to get squashed and prevent from playing in theaters. So that I thought was kind of a bold nomination. Although Rafe, Timothy, Coleman, and Sebastian may as well stay home, because I think this one is Adrian Brody's to lose. The Brutalist is the big epic of award season this year. It's 3.5 hours long. It comes with an intermission, and he has already won a Golden Globe and lots of other attention throughout Oscar season, and I think he's probably the one here.
I got to make some time to see that movie. Okay, our producer Joe is letting us squeeze in Best Supporting Actor. What are you thinking there, real quick?
For Best Supporting Actor, we've got Yura Borzov. I've said that name wrong for sure, but that's for Enora, Kieran Culkin for Real Pain, Edward Norton for A Complete Unknown, Guy Pearce for The Brutalist, and Jeremy Strong for The Apprentice. Again, a strong showing for The Apprentice here, a movie that when it came out did not make a lot of noise in theaters. I think Kieran Culkin has a real shot at this. He plays a fascinating character in a really interesting small movie, but he's got a lot of heat coming off the show Succession. I think that will resonate with Oscar voters here, and it's a really good movie. Although I would love to see Enora pick up a Best Supporting Actor nominate or award here, because it's such an interesting, fun, humorous but really deeply felt movie that, in my opinion, deserves to win everything. But I know in my heart that it won't.
You're helping us craft our much-watch list. On the way out, Richard Krause, the biggest snub, and I think it's a Canadian.
It is. My heart hurt a little bit today for Pamela Anderson, who has been touted as maybe becoming the first Baywatch cast member to get an Academy Award nomination for her film, The Last Showgirl. She's tremendous in this. She's been nominated for a Golden Globe. There's been a lot of attention for her throughout award season, and I was just really hoping that this career renaissance that she's experiencing now would be capped right now in the moment by an Oscar nomination. It didn't happen. It's still a great movie, and it's in theaters right now. You can go see it this weekend.
Film critic Richard Krause, all the best. Thanks.
Thanks, Michelle.
Still to come, stuck with the messy fallout from a construction project. Who pays to pick up the waste disposal bin? Details of a home reno dumpster dispute. A Consumer Watch report after the break.
It's not just any Monday.
You guys hear that?
It's Must See Monday on CTV with Rob Lowe and 911 Lone Star. Rescue high surf.
Right on.
Sight unseen. You're clinically blind.
Sonny, are you there?
Get into Must See Mondays on CTV.
When you're having home renovations done, there are lots of decisions to make, and one of them is what to do with all the debris left over.
Many contractors recommend renting a waste disposal bin, but if you do, you need to make sure it's clear who's paying for it. As CTV's Pat Foran reports, one couple learned the hard way.
You see waste disposal bins all over the GTA. They're a handy way for contractors to get rid of all kinds of debris. Usually the bins are rented for a week or two, and then a truck picks them up and hauls them away.
What did you think when you saw the bin back in your driveway?
Initially, I thought, okay, they put it in the wrong spot.
Mara and Jeff Swartz of Thornhill recently had a bin in their driveway after they hired a contractor to renovate their ensuite bathroom.
Took out the old jacuzzi, put in a free-floating tub.
Overall, the renovation went fine. Their contractor agreed he would pay to have the bin removed, but after the job was done, they never heard from him again. When the bin company came to remove the bin, there was some confusion.
You have to pay me. And we went, no. The contractor has to pay you.
The company did take the bin away, but later brought it back filled with someone else's debris and left it on the Swartz's driveway.
One day I get a phone call from Mara. She goes, "Are we renovating again?" I went, "No." "Well, there's a bin in the driveway."
The bin company said the contractor failed to pay the $495 rental charge, so the bin would remain in the Swartz's driveway until it was paid.
We're sorry, our policy is if it's not been paid for, we bring the bin back, and it was loaded with junk, and it stays there until we get paid. Whether it's you, the contractor, we don't care.
The couple rented the bin from Binners, the company told CTV News. Unfortunately, when a contractor does not fulfill their payment obligations, we are left with limited options to recover outstanding balances. This can include withholding services, returning equipment, or in some cases, placing a lien on the property. When renting a disposal bin, ensure payment terms are clearly documented, request written confirmation who is responsible for the bin rental, ask for a copy of service agreements, and confirm final payment before project completion.
But if you didn't pay, I guess
it would still be there.
In the end, the Swartzes ended up paying the bin rental bill to have it removed from their property. Pat Foran, CTV News.
Meanwhile, Air Canada passengers with a basic fare will now have to pay extra to change their automatically assigned seat at check-in. The airline says the cost of making that switch will depend on the seat you're hoping to switch to. Air Canada says it remains committed to seating families together. Earlier this month, the carrier also added extra fees for carry-on luggage for destinations within Canada, the U.S., and the Caribbean.
Turning to sports, the Maple Leafs were looking for their 4th straight win when they faced off with the Columbus Blue Jackets last night.
Nylander curls back again in front.
The Leafs were down by 4 before they found the back of the net in the 3rd period, but it wasn't even close to enough. They ended up losing the game 5-1. The team will be back on the ice Saturday to play the Ottawa Senators.
Brown gets blown past, shot and they score! Blair Turnbull!
Meantime, the Toronto Scepters were also in action facing off against the Boston Fleet. The team attempted to rally late but ended up losing the game 4-1. The Scepters are back on the ice Saturday to play the New York Sirens. Quick break, weather when we return. So we've been talking about a little bit of a warm-up, not so dangerously cold now, and then some flurries as well.
Yeah, we've got the flurries outside right now. If you're joining us from Stouffville, Pickering, over in toward the Ajax area, still some snowy weather at this time. Scarborough as well. It looks like we're going to get a bit of a break this afternoon, and then another little burst of snow could move in for this evening. One more look at the satellite and radar there, just to show you what we're dealing with. There are still weather advisories in place. Some of these will come to an end this afternoon, but just take care if you have to be out on the roads. Overnight tonight, yes, still cold, minus double-digit territory, still feeling like minus 20, but not feeling like minus 30 at least. There's your wake-up weather for tomorrow. And then one more look at the 7-day forecast. We are slowly improving into the weekend, and we're going to be comfortably warm by Monday, Nathan and Michelle.
Not too bad. Thank you, Lindsay. And that is it for CTV News at noon. Remember, you can get Toronto's breaking news all day long on CP24 and at ctvnewstoronto.ca.
For Lindsay Morrison and the whole team here, have a pleasant afternoon. I'm Michelle Ledet.
And I'm Nathan Downer. Be sure to join us later for CTV News at 5 and 6. Take care.